For today's questions, I'm going to be teaching you two rules or two shortcuts. Here's the first one, write this heading down. It's called the difference of two squares rule. Now the good thing about today's questions, there is no working out. Using this rule or this shortcut takes you directly to the final answer straight away. So no working out. Every single one of these questions, you will be able to complete every single question on the screen right now in under 30 seconds once you know this shortcut. So make sure you write down the example as we do, because once you've got this example down, it works for every question that looks like these ones on the board, because it takes you straight to the answer. So you can't use this difference of two squares rule for every single question involving expanding two brackets. If you look very carefully, you will notice that these questions all have something in common. Have a very careful look. You'll see that the numbers and the letters in each bracket are the same. One bracket always has a plus, one bracket always has a minus. That's when we can use this shortcut or this rule. So all the questions that you'll be doing in the first half of the lesson will look like this. The brackets are the same numbers, same letters. Same numbers, same letters, but one will have a plus and one will have a minus. So here's how you use the shortcut to get you straight to the answer. We'll do this one together, then you'll do the rest on your own. Whatever the first thing is in the bracket, whatever it is, square it and write it down here. So make yourself a little note, whatever the first thing is in the bracket, square it. That's a square. So that means x squared. That's all that you need to write down there. Whatever the first thing is in the bracket, you square it and you write it down there. Leave a little bit of a space where you need to write one little thing in between. Whatever, you can circle that if it helps, whatever the last thing is in the bracket, the very last thing, square that and write it down there. Squared means times by itself. So that means do 5 times 5 or 5 squared and write it down here. 5 times 5 is 25. You're nearly finished. The only thing you have to do is you have to put something in between it, a plus or a minus. It's always a minus, just because I said so. That's all you need to know. Square that, and put a minus in between. Make yourself a little note if you think it'll help. Make yourself a note saying that that is always a minus. Always. Now mine's a bit messy because I'm trying to fit it on quite a small whiteboard for the screen. Make sure yours is very clear. Whatever the first thing is in the bracket, square it. The very last thing in the brackets, square it. And then put a minus in between. Pause the video, do all the other 5. You don't have to do that little green working out each time. If it helps, you're welcome to. I'll put the answers up in a sec. That's what your answers should look like, and that's all the working out that you need to do. Please be careful. Look at your numbers. First of all, every single one has a minus. That never changes. The most common mistake students make here, though, is they double the number instead of squaring it. So a common mistake here, students will write 6 because they did double 3. That means 3 squared. 3 times 3 is 9. Same thing here. It's not double 6, it's 6 squared, or 6 times 6, which is 36. All right? Have a look if your answers are all correct. I'll wipe the board now and put a few more questions up to help you practice. All right, here are 4 more. These 4 look a little bit different to the ones that you've done, so they're a bit trickier, but all you need to know is do exactly the same thing. Don't let the order trick you here. Follow the rules from before, you'll get the correct answer. And the clue for the other ones, square everything. So don't just square the x, you've got to do 2 squared as well. Up here, square the 3 and the x when you're doing the first bit. Up here, square every number and put a squared next to every letter. They are your clues. Have a go. Okay, here are our answers. If it's written backwards in the brackets, the answer will look a bit backwards to what we're used to as well. 9 squared is 81, and then the x squared goes on this side. Have a look at this one, please. The most common incorrect answer here is students write 2x squared minus 16. You need to square every single number. So 2 squared equals 4. Same thing over here. 3 squared, so the answer has to have a 9 in it. And for the final one here, again, there's a minus in between every single one, but I've squared every single number. 6 squared equals 36, 4 squared equals 16, and make sure you've put a squared next to each letter as well. All right, we're halfway through. That's all you need to know about the difference of two squares rule. I'll now teach you one more rule called the perfect square rule. Okay, put the heading the perfect square rule in your notes. We will do this one together as an example. Some step-by-step instructions like before. Same thing though, if you follow these steps, you can get straight to the final answer without needing to do any working out. So we use the perfect square rule when the question looks like this. That is, when there's one bracket and it's got a squared next to it. So whenever you see a question that's got one bracket with a squared next to it and it tells you to expand, you can use this shortcut. Now, there are three pieces, if you like, in the answer. Look at the ones that you just did. There were only 2 pieces or 2 parts in the answer. This one, there'll be 3 pieces or 3 parts. If that makes sense already, great. If not, you'll see as we start solving. But write down the instructions like we're about to do together so I can help you do the other ones on your own. We start off really similar to before. Whatever the first thing is in the bracket, square it and write it down there. Leave a little bit more space because we've got to put a bit more in the middle this time. Whatever the last thing is in the bracket, square it and write it down there. So this is really similar to before. The first thing in the bracket is an x, so we start by writing x squared. The last thing in the bracket is a 3. 3 times 3 is 9. You need to be doing this before me, so copy this down as I am. Try and do the black parts before I do. Okay, the next bit. After here, you need to decide whether to put a plus or a minus. Whatever it is in the brackets, whatever that is there, that is what you put down here. So you need to just make yourself a little note that whatever's in the brackets, that's what sign you put there, always. Then, over to this side here, in front of the 9, you have to decide whether to put a plus or a minus. Make yourself a note and make this stand out. That one there, that is always a plus, okay? That there is always, no matter what, always a plus. So you don't ever need to think about that one. You just know that you always put a plus sign there. Now we've got one gap in the middle. This is the trickier bit, but follow these steps and I hope this makes it pretty simple. To work out whatever goes in the middle here, you need to double the number in the brackets and then put the X or put the letter next to it. So what number's in the brackets? It's a 3. Not squared, double. So what's double 3? 6, and then put the X next to it. And that's your final answer. So make yourself a little note to help you remember that if you like. And you can write this any way that makes sense to you, but I'm going to say to get that number there, you need to double the number in the brackets. That's where that number comes from. And then you just have to write the letter X next to it. So the middle bit, I know that's a bit confusing, but you'll get the hang of it and it'll make more sense as you start to do a few more of the questions. So that's your final answer. I know the green makes it look pretty messy. That's just to help us. There are instructions. Make that as neat as you can in your book. Do the same steps to try and solve these ones here. Pause it now and I'll put the answers up. All right, here are your answers. Let's quickly go through them. We squared the first thing in the bracket, x squared. We squared the last thing in the bracket, 36. That one there is always a plus. Look at all your answers. That one never ever changes. That's always a plus here. Here, I put a plus there because that's what's in the brackets. Whatever's in the brackets is what goes there. The tricky middle bit. It says double the number in the brackets. There's a 6 in the brackets, double 6, 12. Same thing for the next one. X squared, 8 times 8 is 64. There was a minus in the bracket, so I put a minus there that time. Double 8 is 16, and then put the letter X next to it. I've made 2 mistakes on the board. This happens all the time. You guys do it and I get annoyed, and I've done the exact same thing. I changed the letter to try and trick you here, but we get so used to always putting the letter X, it's really easy to make that mistake. So can you look at yours and make sure you use the correct letter all the way through? Because it's very easy to get in the habit of just putting an X there instead. So they should be E and A. Good. Let's work from left to right this time. The first thing is an E squared. There's a minus in the brackets, so a minus goes here. Double the number in the brackets. Double 7 is 14. Put the letter next to it. Always a plus. 7 times 7 is 49. A squared. Plus here, plus in your answer. Double the number in the brackets, 20. Put the letter next to it. That's always a plus. 10 times 10 is 100. All right, I'm going to give you 3 more that are a little bit trickier, but I'll help you along the way. All right, let's start off solving the first one. Stay ahead of me, but I'll do it with you to give you some clues because it does look a little bit different. There's a bit more information in the brackets this time. Do the same thing to start off. Square everything. So, same thing. Don't write 2x squared. You've got to square this number as well. So similar to before, 4x squared. There's a plus in the brackets, so work out what goes here. Try and do it before me. We'll come back to the middle bit because it's a bit trickier this time. Remember this one here, always a plus, and then work out what number goes on the end there. 5 squared, 25. Now, a little bit harder here because you've been told, oh, double the number in the brackets, but now there are 2 numbers in the brackets. So make yourself a little note. You need to times these numbers together, then double it. So make yourself any note you like, but I'm going to say that to do this, we have to times together, then double. That's what my messy writing here says. You write it any way you like. If you've got a better way of writing it, that's fine. Times those numbers together and then double your answer. So 5 times 2 is 10. Double that, and that's what number goes in here. Just don't forget to put the letter X next to it. 20x is correct. 5 times 2 is 10, double it is 20. Try the same thing to solve these 2 here. Go. Okay, here are our final 2 answers. Don't forget to square the 3, it becomes 9. There's a plus in the bracket, so a plus goes there. So to work out this middle number, times the numbers in the brackets together. 3 times 4 is 12. Double 12, 24. Put the X next to it. That one there, always a plus. 4 times 4, 16. Last one. 5 squared is 25, m squared. There's a minus in the bracket, so a minus goes there. For the middle number, times these numbers together. 5 times 3 is 15. Double it, 30. Put the letter next to it. Always a plus, and then 3 squared is 9. So this one is a bit trickier, I understand. Work through the questions in the order that I have put in the lesson plan and see if you can make sure you know which rule to use, which shortcut to use for each question. All right, go.